The principle we'll be explaining in this video is what Dale Carnegie called the great secret of dealing with people. It truly is a profound secret. Imagine this, dear viewer. This secret will allow you to win over any relationship, improve any relationship on the brink of collapse, and strengthen any bond you desire. This is from the third part of the highly enjoyable book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, by the wonderful author, Dale Carnegie. Grab your favorite cup of coffee or your preferred drink, and let's dive in. Welcome, dear viewer, to Growth Galore. The concept of this channel is to explain books in English, while the text is displayed in both English and German on the screen. You can also enable subtitles for more languages, and if you want to hear the video in other languages, you can request it from our channel. Now, let's begin with the principle we mentioned at the start of the video. The goal of this principle is to satisfy a deep-seated human instinct, one that many of us may not be aware of. Let me clarify the difference between instinct and nature because many people often confuse the two. Nature, dear viewer, refers to the innate qualities and default mindset you are born with. It's like the initial settings you are born with, and good morals are part of this nature. Things like honesty, loyalty, and sincerity. You'll notice that human nature is evident in children. They don't harbor hate, betrayal, or deceit. There's no racial discrimination or abnormal behaviors. All these negative acts, let's call them evil, are not part of our nature. However, the problem with human nature is that it's prone to change or distortion. This can happen due to family, friends, society, the environment, and culture, or through the influence of external factors like phones and TV programs. Instincts, on the other hand, are actions you perform involuntarily, like eating, drinking, sleeping, breathing, engaging in conversation, or sexual activities. These instincts don't change or disappear. Dale Carnegie says there's an instinct within us that many of us are unaware of. It's the desire to feel important. He calls it the desire to feel significant, and this desire is embedded in you, pushing you to satisfy it in any way you can. He gives an example of wealthy people who build huge mansions and spend millions of dollars on them. In the end, you find that the wealthy person only uses 1 or 2 rooms in the mansion, while the rest of the house is just unused, dark hallways and empty rooms. So you might ask, why, dear wealthy person, did you spend all that money on a house where you only use 10%? Dale Carnegie says what drives them to spend all this money on mansions is the desire to feel important or grand. When people pass by and see the mansion, they'll say, "Oh, that's so-and-so's mansion." They might also buy expensive cars, and all of this is to fulfill that desire. Some people spend their entire lives chasing high-status positions, like becoming ministers, CEOs, or directors. Others seek family prestige, societal status, or spend their lives in pursuit of knowledge so their name can be recorded in history, giving them a sense of importance. This desire for importance is what drove Thomas Edison to attempt to light the light bulb 999 times and fail. As Dale Carnegie says, we all try to satisfy this desire in various ways. Some even pretend to be sick just to get attention from others. Carnegie recounts how the writer Mary Roberts Rinehart told him about a very intelligent woman who reached a point in her life where she no longer felt important. So, she decided to stay in bed for 10 years. Imagine, 10 years of feigning illness. The result? Her poor, elderly mother had to climb the stairs every day to take care of her. And the reason for this? To satisfy her need to feel important. One day, the mother herself became bedridden and eventually passed away, and the daughter simply got up, dressed, and went back to living her life as usual. Dale Carnegie says that some people will go to the extent of causing the deaths of 80 million people just to satisfy this instinct. Your task with this principle is to fulfill this human instinct in every person you know. This is the great secret of dealing with others. The brilliant American philosopher John Dewey once said, "The deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important." We all have motivations that drive us to do things, things that make you get up in the morning, go to work and seek money, jobs, or salaries. But the deepest of these motives is the desire to feel important. In 1921, Andrew Carnegie founded the United States Steel Corporation and is considered one of the richest men in history. It's said that to this day, he remains the wealthiest person in U.S. history. The man was incredibly wealthy. Andrew Carnegie hired a man named Charles Schwab and made him the CEO of the U.S. Steel Corporation. Dale Carnegie mentions that Andrew Carnegie gave Charles Schwab an annual salary of $1 million in 1921. Imagine, $1 million per year back then. While earning $200 a month was considered well off, Schwab was making $200 an hour, a truly staggering amount. Carnegie asks, why did Andrew give such a huge salary to someone like Charles Schwab? Was he the best in the steel industry? No. Was he the best CEO of his time? Also no. Schwab himself said, "I earned this salary because of my ability to deal with people." When asked how he does that, he answered in simple words, "My greatest asset is my ability to inspire enthusiasm among my employees. I can bring out the best in anyone through appreciation and encouragement. Nothing kills a person's ambitions like criticism." Schwab reminds us of what Dale Carnegie said in the first part of his book. Criticism wounds a person's pride. That's why Schwab said, "I never criticize anyone. I believe in giving people incentive to work, and I try to encourage them with praise rather than finding fault. I am sincere in my praise and generous with my compliments." Dale Carnegie adds that Andrew Carnegie, who hired Schwab, was much the same. He loved to praise and genuinely appreciate people. Imagine Andrew requested that his epitaph read, "Here lies a man who knew how to surround himself with men smarter than he was." Even in death, he continued to appreciate and praise others. Carnegie emphasizes that this praise wasn't empty flattery, but honest and sincere. Carnegie goes on to say that some people seek to fulfill this instinct to the point of madness. He tells a story of when he once asked the director of a mental hospital why people go insane. The director, who had received many honors in his field, admitted that no one knows the final answer. But many people find a sense of importance in the world of madness that they could not find in reality. He shares the story of a patient whose life was filled with disappointment. She wanted love, pleasure, children, and social status, but frustration after frustration followed. Her husband didn't love her, refused to eat meals with her, and demanded that his food be brought to his room upstairs. She didn't have children, nor did she achieve the social status she had sought. Eventually, she went insane. When she arrived at the hospital, in her world of fantasy and madness, she divorced her husband and imagined that she had married into an aristocratic English family, insisting on being called Lady Smith. As for children, she imagined that she gave birth to a child every night, and she would tell the doctor on each visit, "I had a baby girl today, doctor." Yet, her doctor said that even if he could restore her mind, he wouldn't, because she was happier now in her imaginary world. Dale Carnegie explains that people's thirst for feeling important is so intense that it can drive them to madness in order to fulfill this desire. So, imagine the greatness you offer someone when you genuinely and sincerely appreciate them and fulfill their need for importance. This is real. Valuing others is one of the greatest ways to influence them and motivate them to work with you. Dear viewer, in this life, There are important people we must appreciate, whether it's your mother, father, sibling, life partner, or spouse. Never forget to acknowledge the immense sacrifices they make for you. Stand by them in all situations, show them your gratitude, and express sincere appreciation for what they do, because this appreciation is the foundation that keeps relationships going and helps them flourish. Remember, this appreciation is not just empty words. It is genuine gratitude for the support, the sacrifices, and the care they provide. When you offer them this heartfelt appreciation, you will win their hearts and you will be able to build stronger and deeper relationships. You will see the profound impact of this secret in dealing with others. In truth, there isn't a person on earth who doesn't wish to have the ability to influence and persuade, to be able to convince anyone of anything they want. Today, I bring you 3 principles from Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and these 3 principles will literally allow you to persuade anyone of anything you desire. Imagine having the power to influence others. Think deeply about this, dear viewer. Imagine being able to convince anyone of whatever you wish, and this influence helps you excel in both your personal and professional life. The important thing, as we've come to learn from this book, is that it teaches you how to influence others and build strong relationships. Dale Carnegie talks about 3 core principles for dealing with people, and if you master these principles, you will be able to persuade anyone of anything. Let's start with the first principle. One of Dale Carnegie's favorite hobbies was fishing. He says that when he goes fishing, he brings strawberries with cream because he loves this combination. However, he always puts worms on his hook as bait. One day he thought of a simple question: why don't I use the strawberries I love as bait? He then answered his own question by saying, the reason is very simple. Fish don't like strawberries. They like worms. From this story, Carnegie learned an important lesson. Each person has their own interests and desires. You cannot convince people by offering them what you like. You have to give them what they want. In other words, if you want to convince someone to do something, you need to think about what matters to them, not what matters to you. Just like the fish that are attracted to worms and not strawberries. If you want to persuade someone to do what you want, you need to offer them what they want. The second scenario. Dale Carnegie tells a story from one of his training courses. At one point, he rented a hall at a hotel to hold a training session, and he printed invitations and advertisements for people to attend the course. Suddenly, the hotel contacted him, informing him that the price of the hall had increased by 300%, 3 times the original price. At that time, Carnegie couldn't afford the steep increase, so he decided to meet with the hotel manager. But before going to the manager, Carnegie thought carefully about how to handle the situation. Instead of talking about his personal problems or demanding his rights, he decided to focus on what mattered to the manager. He approached the manager and said, I was shocked by the price increase, but at the same time I understand that you need to meet your financial goals for the year, and I respect that. He then made a suggestion, asking the manager to take a piece of paper and divide it into 2 halves. On one side, write the positives, and on the other, the negatives of this decision. Carnegie then explained to the manager that increasing the price would bring some benefits like higher profits, but added, if I am unable to pay this increase, I'll have to cancel the course and move it to another hotel. This means you'll lose a regular client as I host my courses throughout the year. Additionally, I bring important people to my courses, officers, engineers, businessmen, and others, who, when they attend my events here, serve as free advertising for your hotel. Carnegie explains that throughout the conversation, he focused on what mattered to the manager, never mentioning his own personal struggles. After this discussion, the hotel contacted him to inform him that they had decided to reduce the price increase to just 50% instead of 300%. And just like that, the hook with the right bait worked. When dealing with people, always focus on what matters to them, not what matters to you. Think about what they want and try to offer them what they need. If you do this, you will be able to persuade them effortlessly. In this text, Dale Carnegie presents important principles for influencing others and using effective methods of persuasion and relationship building. I'll begin by explaining the first principle, which he calls bait the hook to suit the fish. This is a metaphor for how we should approach others based on what they want, not on what we want. The idea is that everyone is concerned with their own interests and not necessarily what benefits others. If you want to persuade someone to do something, you must present them with an incentive that appeals to them, not to you. Carnegie shares a personal story where he was negotiating with a hotel management about a sudden increase in the price of a hall he planned to rent for one of his training courses. Instead of discussing what he wanted or protesting the price hike, Carnegie chose to focus on what mattered to the hotel. He discussed how this decision would impact their profits and reputation. In the end, the hotel management agreed to reduce the price hike after realizing the potential benefits they could gain from working with him. The second principle, the secret of Socrates. Carnegie references the philosopher Socrates and explains how getting people to say yes at the beginning of a conversation increases the likelihood of persuading them. He explains through this principle that getting multiple yes responses from the person you're speaking with builds a positive momentum and makes achieving your final goal much easier. Conversely, a no response creates a psychological barrier that is much harder to overcome, as it gets lodged deeply in the person's nervous and psychological system. The principle here is to get the other person to start by agreeing on simple and positive points before asking them for anything. This technique is based on the fact that people feel compelled to continue agreeing if they start on a positive note, which makes it easier to persuade them in the end. The first impression. Dale Carnegie talks about the significance of first impressions in determining the future of any relationship. The first impression, as he explains, can be extremely crucial, as it shapes your view of the other person in ways that may be hard to change later. For instance, if you see someone in a negative light, that initial image might stick with you, even though the person could be entirely different in reality. Carnegie gives the example of a neighbor's son who was seen smoking once, and despite possibly quitting smoking later on, the image of him as a smoker remains in your mind because of that first impression. This happens because people tend to categorize others based on the initial impressions they form. Lastly, Carnegie emphasizes the importance of a smile as a way to leave a positive first impression. A smile, he explains, is the simplest and most powerful tool for winning someone over and leaving a lasting good impression. It not only makes others feel at ease, but also positively affects their emotional state. Studies show that a smile has a profound impact on creating positive reactions in others and reducing tension. Smiling helps foster a friendly and warm atmosphere, as illustrated by the story of the waiting room. A young child's smile managed to transform the tense atmosphere in the room into one filled with social interaction and camaraderie. The lesson to take away here is that a smile isn't just a simple gesture. It's a powerful tool for communication and building successful relationships with others. Summary of the principles 1. Bait the hook to suit the fish. Always base your conversations on what the other person wants, not what you want. 2. The secret of Socrates. Start your conversation with questions or points that lead the other person to say yes, helping you build a positive momentum. 3. The first impression. First impressions are crucial for determining the future of your relationship with someone, so always aim to leave a good impression, using a smile as an effective and simple approach. Applying these principles in everyday life will open new doors in understanding others and influencing them positively. I'm sure you know people in your life whose mere voice brings you joy and happiness, even before you see them. These are the people who are always cheerful and smiling, and through that smile they bring happiness into your life. Smiles have the power to change the mood and bring joy to those around you. And with that, we conclude this wonderful lesson, my dear follower. Don't forget to share the video with your loved ones so that the benefit spreads. I hope you found this summary of the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to stay updated with new content. Thank you for watching and for your precious time, which is truly invaluable.